Yeah. Oh
But
man.
it's
Oh
unfortunate.
dude. Speaking of new hardware, that's a good segue right there.
Oh yeah, that is a good segue. This is pretty cool. I'm glad you pulled this article.
Um,
So this is coming from The Verge again, and this is Sean Hollister, who we've covered multiple times. He's been with The Verge for like I don't even know how long, but he's been doing stuff like this for over
um,
15 years. It
yeah.
looks like.
CNET, Gizmodo. We're talking major publishers. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope I don't butcher the name of this. Let me preference that
It's a
because
tough
I
one.
did look it up.
It's a tough one.
So Ayaneo, Ayaneo.
Oh, I
Or
like that. I
it's
mean, it
either
sounds right.
Ayaneo or Ayaneo. I'm pretty sure it's Ayaneo.
A and Neo is how I'd say it. I'll just say that.
Ayaneo is what we're rolling with. So the title of the article is the Ayaneo Kun?
I think
Yeah,
it's I
content.
want to say Kun, like Ayaneo Kun, because like if you, but
I,
this is the anime
yeah,
in me coming out because like it's
yeah,
when
I
I used
think
to watch anime a lot. It was a lot of names with Kun at the end and stuff like that. So
it like this.
yeah,
Kun.
like
Kun.
a
All right,
name
let's
with
do Kun
I
then.
don't know what it means. All right, don't come at me,
All
okay?
right. All right. Well, all I know is like this isn't a paid advertisement. Whoever's listening is going to remember that.
Yeah,
So the Ayaneo Kun
yeah,
nearly doubles the Steam Deck's battery for nearly twice the price. So on paper, it's the ultimate PC gaming handheld. It's pretty cool,
yeah,
and they really actually
yeah.
go into detail about it. And this is what we were talking about: how handhelds in the UK, was it UK or was it Europe? I think it was Europe overall. They're going to have to do
Yeah,
portable batteries in pretty much all electronics moving
right.
forward after a
Yeah,
certain date. So, the Steam Deck's biggest weakness is battery life, and yet somehow every challenger has failed to raise that bar. The ANEO 2 showed us that AMD's Ryzen 6800U wasn't ready to compete, and the Asus Rogue Ally revealed that AMD's Z1 Extreme couldn't pull ahead if Asus insisted on matching the Steam Deck's 40 watt hour battery life. Basically, all these handhelds, you need a charger constantly with
yeah,
you.
you do.
So, but ANU may have an answer. It's stuffing a 75 watt hour pack into a larger, heavier handheld called the ANU Kun that it now claims can last nearly 3.25 hours. 3.5 hours. So 3 hours and 45 minutes. Weird way to say 3 hours 25 minutes. 15? Jeez. 3 hours and 15 minutes. Sorry, I'm running on lack of sleep and jet lag. All right, so that's nearly double the battery and runtime you expect from a Steam Deck at that wattage, though it appears it wasn't captured while playing a game exactly. Hmm. Okay, so this one could be kind of fishy here.
Mm,
I'm trying to zoom in on this image. It's a
yeah,
weird color.
yeah. I like click it and I can enhance it, but
Yeah.
yeah,
So it basically gets into their Ayaneo Kun battery life test, and it's a continuous battery life at 15 watts. Will last 3 hours, 13 minutes, 54 seconds. Pretty much has the results are only for the game tested by ANU and are for reference only, and the test results are only for the environmental tested by ANU. In different environments tested will result in different results. So basically, what they're talking about is the relationship between the amount of electricity usage based on time. So 1 hour you get 73, 2 hours you got 45, 3 hours you got 15, 3 hours, 13 minutes you get 2.9%. Basically, it's just a gauge of how much battery it'll use at given percentages.
right.
Which that's got to attribute to life too, not life, quality of the game and experience.
Yeah,
Is it the less battery life you have, the slower it's got to get, so it doesn't waste more energy.
right. Yeah, it's it's
Interesting way
true.
to do it.
It is. It is.
So let's get into this even further. The Verge already mentioned that the Ayaneo Kun a couple of times before, uh, but today the company revealed its full array of features, price, and expected ship window, and that you'll be able to crowdfund it on September 5th if you're willing to pay with no guarantees. People that crowdfund just throwing away money, in my opinion.
Yeah,
In my
it's a
opinion.
dicey spot, huh?
It's a it's 100% a gamble. Um, definitely do research on it before you get into it. So going back to who wrote this, Sean Hollister gives his opinion. Personally, I'd wait, but there's no question that this handheld has the strongest spec sheet yet. Starting with a comparatively large 8.4 inch 2560 by 1600 500 nit 90% DCI P3 color IPS screen. Basically, it's real
Ooh,
pretty It does 2560 by 1600, and it's about the size of a Steam Deck. It's kind of sick.
And see,
It look it looks clean, dude.
it does, dude. That IPS panel is probably gonna look really good too. It's like any
Oh
IPS
yeah.
display in a little handheld always pops.
Oh yeah.
And like
Always.
getting into the handheld botting kind of scene that I've been kind of researching and stuff
Yeah,
the
it's
past
true.
couple months, like IPS displays are huge, and like whether it's Game Boys, PSPs, like a lot of that, right?
Hmm.
So it's like IPS is certainly, I think, the best. So the fact that they're going with that, I mean, yeah, it's huge. And I mean, the screen itself is noticeably bigger, right, compared to a Steam Deck. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, that's very true.
very cool stuff, honestly, coming out of this.
All right, let's go a little bit further. Ayaneo seems to have heard how some people prefer the Steam Deck's ergonomics and loads of buttons to its own previous handhelds too. So the Kun adds bigger grips, dual touchpads. That's actually pretty interesting. Where they're putting the touchpad, each with 4 distinct buttons underneath, quad back buttons, beefier triggers, and even a little kickstand reminiscent to the original Nintendo Switch. And you gotta show the people what that looks like. That looks clean.
Does look pretty clean, I ain't gonna lie.
That's a really, really cool profile. And one of my complaints, and I mentioned this before on the show, is how the Nintendo Switch, when I hold it, it's like my hands get pancakey,
It's so
like
true, though.
puppet
It's like,
style, and like I get really bad like hand cramps, like palm cramps
yeah,
because of it.
God, it's so true. It's
So to
not
see that
ergonomic in
curvature
the
is cool.
slightest. You know what I'm saying? So
No,
it's like,
it's not. Yeah, and I
upsetting.
got like big hands, so it's like just weird, man.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
So
I just have to say those triggers, they remind me of an Elite controller in this picture.
I
They
was
look
I was gonna say
just
that
like
too.
it's kind of crazy, right? Like they look just like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, they do. Like at least the side profile of it. I think
right,
the
yeah.
rest of it is like kind of meaty, but it looks good.
Yeah.
That'd be wild to just see somebody pull out at an airport when you're chilling.
All
But
right.
hey. All right, so let's go further into this article. There's also a little Windows Hello front facing camera underneath the back or select button for face login and streaming. Something most something most handhelds have entirely omitted, as well as Hall effect joysticks and triggers to avoid drift. How many times we talk about that stuff on the pod?
Oh, dude. Yeah, it's I got to say like it's a Kickstarter or crowdfund, right? So it's like
Oh yeah,
a grain of salt, but like dude, that type of stuff has most people foaming at the mouth. Like you're gonna put a Hall effect
100%.
joysticks, you're gonna have it so that you try to avoid drift in any given scenario. Like, come on.
So cool, and the triggers, That's cool.
Yeah, dude.
Uh, so HD linear motors for Rumble, like the Switch and the DualSense, those feel fantastic, and an optional 4G module for cellular connectivity. There's a nano SIM slot hidden underneath the kickstand. Brother, that is
Oh
so
man,
many features in a little handheld right there.
dude. This is gonna
I don't think
be
people
a
really understand how insane that is.
this is gonna be a dense unit. You're packing in all this tech, and then like cellular and stuff like that too. It's like that's like another layer, and that's gonna
Yeah.
add more weight. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I don't know. For me, I like a device. Like one of the things I like about iPhone is how dense it feels because it's like they pack
Oh yeah,
everything
it's
very
oh yeah.
compact. It's just like you can tell it's like a solid device, and so I love that out of my like kind of handheld stuff. But I don't know,
Yeah.
for weight for some people, I don't know. It's maybe it's a deal breaker for some. But I mean, you got this much tech in there and you got this much going for it. I mean, there's a lot of positives here. So hopefully we actually see it come to life.
I th- it's got me concerned, okay? From like an engineering background that I have. That amount of features in there, you're gonna have really beefy setup and like what's the phrase I'm looking for here? Um it's not smooth, but it's like intentional software to make everything function properly, right?
Yeah,
And then the other bit of it is how are you gonna keep it cool if it's gonna have a longer battery life than the Steam Deck? Because like
it's
that
true too.
that
Yeah,
that much stuff is gonna generate a lot of energy. That energy needs to go somewhere. Like, have you ever had your phone on your cheek when you're walking outside in the South and it's like 100 degrees out?
yeah.
It's like it's hell, like almost on a literal sense. So if you're holding that thing, it's like, dude, just
Yeah.
don't make a Samsung phone where they might blow up. You know?
It's a good point. I mean, there's a giant vent on the back that we can see, kind of on the right hand side.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, there's a lot of tech in there. And also, I just think about it from like a teardown perspective. Like, if you want to try and repair something yourself, like,
Oh,
depending
oh,
about what's
good
packed in
luck.
there, could be a nightmare. Trying to open the thing up and fix something. Like, that
It's
probably
gonna
won't
be
be fun.
like it's gonna be like a stereotypical like German automotive car, or like that was they're done a Jodov automotive machine, the engine, where you're just like you have to take off 3 different parts to get to one little one, because
Yep.
they like
Yeah.
build a puzzle in with it. But
uh,
this is a long article, so let me start picking up the pace here.
yeah.
Uh, where did I last end on? Okay, so I'm at, and while it houses the same AMD Ryzen 7840U chip you'll find in many boutique PC gaming handhelds this year. The company claims its massive cooling system can crank that APU all the way up to 54 watts in its turbo mode, far higher than the 30-watt turbo that the Asus Rogue Ally can do. Kind of nuts. And
It's
I
pretty
love
crazy.
it. The next thing is the opinionated stuff that I basically was talking about from Sean. So it goes, is that practical? Perhaps not, as it looks like largely a 7% to 10% boost in frame rates over the 30-watt mode in the company's own tests. Do, however, check the jump from 34 FPS to 43 FPS in The Witcher 3, which is no joke. Ayaneo straight up says 54 watts is not recommended for daily use as the main TDP, which means you're going to get wear and tear if you overclock your stuff, basically.
Yeah. And your mileage varies, as they say,
Oh,
across
100%. You got to treat your
places.
stuff with like respect and clean it properly.
Sure do.
But the Kun also houses a full length M.2 2280 SSD slot for up to 8 terabytes of internal storage. That's insane.
It's pretty
Uh,
wild. Yeah.
where, yeah, whereas the deck and many competitors top out at 2 terabytes because you can only fit one chip on their single-sided M.2 2230 SSDs. Jeez, man. Should we get into these quick numbers real quick
Yeah. Let's
on
go for it.
the FPS? So when the game's on 1200p low and you can adjust, it looks like they had 3 different power levels: 15, 30, and 54 watts. On games like Forza Horizon 5, you'll go from anywhere from 54 to 63 frames per second, with 15 watts to nearly double of 80 and 87.
Yeah, that's
And
insane.
then, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Optimization. Gotta have optimized software to do stuff like this. Let's do one more. Horizon Zero Dawn. At 15 watts, you're going from 35 to 36-ish frames per second to get a small boost at 54 watts to 41 to 43 frames per second.
Gosh. See, that's like not big of a return, and I would not risk the mileage of my device to try and get like 4 frames. That's just me.
No, no, I wouldn't. You're not gonna notice anything really.
Right.
Like you're gonna notice 30 frames per second if you're used to 60. You're definitely gonna
That, I mean,
notice
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but you're not gonna notice 36 to 40.
Yeah, you're
You
not.
know, there's no.
Yeah, definitely not.
So here is where we get into the pricing. This is how it's going to work. Let's talk about the pricing sheet, and then I think they pretty much get into. Sean gets into a little bit of the crowdfunding and his take and opinion on it, but I just want to focus right now on this price and configuration. So ANU is pricing the Coon starting at $1,200 essentially retail for 16 gigabytes of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage, stretching all the way up to 1949, so 1950, $1,950 for 64 gigabytes of RAM and a 4 terabyte SSD. Early bird prices start around $200 less. The Steam Deck starts around $400, but with only a 64 gigabyte of eMMC storage. And while Sean took that route and swapped out the drive himself, he thinks it's fair to say the Coon is roughly twice the price if we compare 512 gigabytes versus 512 gigabyte models, which that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
So the early bird specials $200 plus dollars cheaper in some cases. There is an official retail value that is slightly higher than, I guess that's Indigo Go
Yeah,
retail.
Indiegogo. Yeah. Indiegogo is like
Indiegogo.
another, it's another Kickstarter essentially.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so I don't know, man. Where do you stand on it?
It's
Is this something you would purchase? Would you crowdfund this?
no. I'm be honest. I mean, It's interesting. So there's a prototype that he played around with in a video. I'll kind of show that. Or this is like on. I'm pretty sure this is on like kind of one of the founders, or maybe like a YouTuber that kind of showed off the device a little bit. But he kind of did an unboxing of it, and I mean, it looks pretty cool. This is the thing, like, I'm all for pushing the handheld market because obviously it's had a resurgence since like the Steam Deck came out and everything, and Take-Two's ROG and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, I am definitely for kind of pushing this market. I mean, personally, for me, I definitely wouldn't like buy this early just because like we just don't know how it's going to perform, and it's hard to say with devices like this, and especially after what we're reading with how packed this thing is with tech, it's hard to say what the mileage is going to be like on a lot of this stuff. So it's one of those things I'd love to see kind of reviews of it. But I mean, it's cool just to kind of see. It's cool to see kind of a prototyped version that kind of in action. To kind of see like, oh yeah, like we did. It is there. There is one that's made, and you can kind of see, kind of how it'll function and everything. But yeah, I'll be interested to see kind of long term how this goes. But I mean, the display looks amazing. I think I think the approach to kind of being able to overclock the device is really cool because a lot of these I feel like it's hard to do, but this one kind of encourages that to a certain extent. So I think that's pretty cool, being able to kind of have that customization, being able to do that without having to tear the thing down or try and dip in liquid nitrogen to get it to run faster. I think that's pretty cool, and seeing the kind of trigger comparisons too with the Steam Deck is pretty cool because the trigger. I mean, it just, I don't know. This thing looks like it's a way more comfortable grip and the triggers are just like probably going to be better than a Steam Deck. So I'm excited for that. I think it'll be cool. And it's also cool just to see the inputs because it's like there's USB-A, USB-C, there's different inputs, and kind of I just love the size of the vent. The vent is like way bigger on this thing compared to the Steam Deck. So.
Looks like they answered my concerns. What I said. I was like, how are they going to cool it? Oh, giant fan. Gotcha. Cool.
I feel like it's going to be like my work machine that has an exhaust pretty similar to that on the side. And sometimes I'll set a drink down next to it, not thinking about it, and then I'll pick it up and the bottom's like heat, and I'm just like, oh well. But yeah, it's I don't know. Overall, I'll be interested to see kind of how this performs. But I mean, just from a practical standpoint of use, I would definitely prefer this over a Steam Deck in terms of just kind of a long-term use, just from looking at it, not even using it.
I agree.
So, yeah, no, I'm interested to hear more about this, and I'm interested to see if it's a success out of crowdfunding and everything, because that'll be huge to see. So that's kind of my thoughts, I would say, about what I think about the Ayaneo, I think is what it was called.
Ayaneo. Yeah. I'm pretty much on board with you, man. I think the Steam Deck has a little bit better functionality. It's more affordable. You can customize it yourself because it's basically a PC. I would wonder if the Ayaneo, when people like finally get their hands on it, if it has that type of customizability with the hardware improvements.
Yeah.
Because if you get all of that, it might be worth the money. It really might, because it's a better screen, more storage. If on the higher end, right? More storage on the higher end. It looks like it has better cooling. The battery lasts longer. And the kicker could be for a lot of people is you can actually have this what's it called? An SD card to get actual cellular communication.
Yeah, like a nano SD.
Yeah, nano SD. Thank you. So that could be a thing. Also, more storage. That 8 terabyte storage is wild.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, I mean, dude, on paper, this thing's way better than a Steam Deck, right? So it's one of those things. I think, I think after some use and kind of long term stuff, it'd be interesting to see kind of how it performs. Yeah, but overall, I mean, I like what I see in terms of like specs. And yeah, I mean, and like you're saying, if the customization, and the customizability is there, then it's probably worth that price tag, right? And if you're in the market for a handheld, it's certainly something to see. And it's cool just seeing him on File Explorer on Windows on this little screen. Right. I think it's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's an actual computer. Let's go.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, and all those connection points too. I bet you can integrate like an actual keyboard. You could probably integrate, who knows, maybe a mouse and use it as an actual computer.
Yeah, I mean, see, it's a good point. And I think too, like, because this is literally a PC, right? I mean, you can load up an emulator. You can get like RetroArch and just load up a bunch of ROMs, and there you go. You have a nice handheld emulator. Right?
That's
I
very
think
true.
that could be a huge selling point for people. So there's a lot of potential, I think, with this device, which is good to see.
Yeah, it's just gonna be a really tough sell to imagine that somebody is walking around with this device in their hands and it's like $2,000.
Yeah, it's true.
That's
It's
that's really what
pricey,
we're
man.
looking at.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
pricey.
this is
Um,
not cheap.
yeah,
So
this is definitely, if you're, I mean, and again, I won't speak too soon, but if you're looking for a handheld that's probably better than a Steam Deck, in terms of just like overall like specs, this is definitely probably something to go with. But again, we just have to see how it launches because that's the thing. Like, we don't really know until we get kind of reviews and maybe some long term use out of people. So
yeah, this is the first I've heard about it, and it's got me intrigued. But I'm not gonna invest in crowdfunding for this.
I'm not
I would
either.
really, I would really like to wait and see what comes of it if it actually becomes a thing. And there's some things that Sean. By the way, all the links are in the description that we cover. All the articles, I mean, the links are in the description. But Sean goes on and gives his opinion at the end, essentially talking about like Ayaneo has a tendency to release something and then just kind of forget about it, move on to the next one.
Yeah,
So you might not have continual support, whereas Valve is like always supporting
yeah,
their like community, their customers with
yeah,
their software and their games.
yeah.
So
It's a
it
good point.
really,
It's a good point.
it's not as good as a brand is really what I should be saying here.
It's very true.
Just like Valve is something else entirely.
Yeah. I see that's the thing too. It's like if something major breaks with this, like is there really gonna be support for that? It's hard to say, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly. It's a risk. It's a risk.
yeah, it's certainly a risk. It's cool to say, but it's kind of like the engineers out there that like tinker, they make these like kind of
Oh
cool
yeah.
like variations of devices, or they make their own device, but then it's like you're on to the next project, right? Like, and then some people are
Fair.
just they have 5 projects going on because they just can't stick to one kind of thing. So, yeah,
I get it.
who knows?
Yeah.